The autumn air in Brasov carried the scent of wood smoke and damp leaves. Elena moved slowly around her kitchen, the warm light of the old lamp pooling across the tiled floor. She had lived in this house for over 4 decades. Every creak in the floorboards, every faint mark on the walls carried a memory she could touch with her mind. That evening, her daughter-in-law, Adriana, arrived with a smile that never reached her eyes. She placed her handbag on the counter and sat down, her perfume filling the room. "You know, Elena," she began softly, "you deserve more company than these empty rooms can give you. There's a new senior home in Sibiu. Modern, comfortable, and they have bingo nights." Elena stirred her tea, the spoon clinking gently against the porcelain. "Bingo nights," she repeated, tasting the words. "Yes." Adriana leaned forward, her voice sweet. "They serve proper meals, they have a garden, people your age to talk to. You would love it there. It would be so much easier for everyone." The last words lingered in the air like a faint shadow. Easier for everyone. Elena's gaze drifted to the window. Beyond it, the street was quiet, the mountains a dark silhouette in the fading light. She thought of her late husband, of their son, of the years she had kept this home alive after his passing. Adriana reached across the table, taking her hand. "Just come and see it. No pressure. I'll drive you tomorrow." Elena smiled politely, but inside, a tightness gripped her chest. Something in Adriana's voice was rehearsed, too smooth, as though the kindness was painted over something far less pleasant. When Adriana left, the house felt even quieter. Elena walked through the rooms, touching the furniture, the photographs, the familiar shapes of her life. For the first time in years, the place felt as though it might slip away from her. Not through time, but through someone's design. She closed the curtains and sat in her favorite armchair. Her tea had gone cold, untouched. In the stillness, she could almost hear her husband's voice. And that night, for the first time in months, Elena did not sleep easily. The following morning, Adriana arrived in a rush, her car engine still ticking as she stepped out. The air was cold enough to turn her breath into mist. "Ready?" she asked, holding open the passenger door. Elena climbed in, her handbag clasped tightly in her lap. The drive to Sibiu wound through mountain roads, the peaks capped with early snow. Adriana kept talking about the facilities, the friendly staff, the view from the garden, but Elena let the words wash over her. She was listening instead to the gaps between sentences. When they arrived, the building stood pale and grand against the winter-gray sky. Large windows gleamed, and neat flower beds lined the path. Inside, the scent of disinfectant lingered beneath an artificial sweetness, as if someone had tried to mask the truth with perfume. A tall man in a press suit greeted them, introducing himself as Mr. Costin. His voice was warm, but his eyes flickered towards Adriana as if they already shared an understanding. They toured bright corridors, each lined with framed photographs of smiling residents. In the dining hall, a group played cards. Someone laughed, but the sound had an edge to it, too quick, too practiced. "See? Everyone's happy here," Adriana whispered. Elena nodded, but her mind caught on something, a locked door at the end of a hallway. Mr. Costin noticed her glance and quickly steered them in another direction. By the time they returned to Brasov, Adriana's voice had softened. "Just think about it, Elena. You deserve comfort." That night, Elena sat alone again in her kitchen. Comfort was not what she had seen in Sibiu. Comfort didn't have locked doors. 3 days later, the phone rang long after sunset. Elena answered, her voice low. "Do you remember me, Elena? I'm Maria. My aunt used to live next door to you." It took a moment for the name to land. Maria's voice trembled slightly. "My aunt, she was in that place in Sibiu. The one Adriana took you to." Elena felt the hairs rise on her arms. "She wasn't the same after moving there," Maria continued. "Letter stopped. Her health had changed too quickly. And then they told us it was natural causes. But something's wrong." The line went quiet except for Maria's breathing. "Please," Maria said finally, "don't let them take you there." Elena thanked her, but the words stayed heavy in the room long after the call ended. The following morning, Adriana arrived unannounced. She was brisk, efficient, carrying a list of things to pack. "I've booked your place," she said, not meeting Elena's eyes. "We'll move you next week." Elena smiled faintly, her mind already working. She agreed to everything, her tone soft, almost grateful. Adriana relaxed, mistaking obedience for surrender. But that night, Elena packed a small bag, just the essentials, and left the house through the back garden, her breath clouding in the cold air. She walked to the bus station under the cover of darkness. By morning, she was gone. Elena found herself in the narrow streets of Sagasora, the medieval towers casting long shadows over the cobblestones. She rented a small room above a bakery, paying in cash. The scent of warm bread rose through the floor each morning. She kept to herself, never using her full name, and walked with her scarf pulled high. From the bakery window, she watched people pass by, wondering how long it would take Adriana to realize she had vanished. On the fourth day, a man delivered a folded newspaper to the bakery. Elena saw her own face printed in the corner, a missing person notice. The words beneath it were polite, concerned, and entirely false. It was in Sagasora that Elena met an old acquaintance, Johan, a retired policeman she had known decades ago. He recognized her instantly, though she tried to deny it. "Elena," he said quietly, "why is your face in the paper?" She told him everything, her voice low, the smell of bread and coffee wrapping around them. Johan listened without interruption, his eyes narrowing at the mention of Mr. Costin and the locked door in Seaview. "I've heard rumors," he said at last, "but nothing proven. If you're willing, we could find out the truth." Johan returned 2 days later with a thin envelope. Inside were photocopies, records of 3 residents who had died at the home in the past year. Each one had left their property to a distant relative who, on closer inspection, did not exist. "Forgery," Johan said. "And if I had to guess, your Adriana might be part of it." Elena's hands tightened around the papers. She thought of Maria's call, of her aunt's sudden decline. They decided to go back to Seaview, not openly, but as visitors seeking information. Johan posed as the relative of a potential resident. Elena stayed in the car, scarf pulled high, watching through the rain-speckled window. Through the glass doors, she saw Mr. Costin greet Johan with that same measured smile. She could not hear the words, but she saw the moment Johan mentioned her name, the way Costin's expression sharpened, his hand tightening on the desk. When Johan returned, his voice was grim. "They know you're gone, and they're looking." Elena agreed to set a trap. Johan contacted Maria, who pretended to be interested in placing her elderly father in the home. An appointment was set for the following week. Elena stayed hidden, but she knew the plan relied on her. She would need to draw Adriana out, to make her believe she had returned willingly. She sent a letter, carefully worded, to Adriana's address in Brasov. It spoke of regret, of loneliness, of wanting to come home. 3 days later, Adriana arrived in Sagasora. They met in the narrow alley behind the bakery. Adriana's smile was radiant, but her eyes darted, calculating. "I knew you'd come to your senses," she said. "Let's go back. We can sort everything." Elena stepped closer, her voice low. "Yes, we will sort everything. But this time, Adriana, it will be on my terms." At the far end of the alley, Johan emerged from the shadows, followed by 2 uniformed officers. Adriana froze, her smile vanishing. The sound of footsteps on cobblestones filled the air, slow and deliberate, as the truth began to close in.